My mom said my dad died 15 years ago, but I just found out he's been living one town over with a whole new family. She hid his birthday cards every year and lied he didn't want me, so I showed up at his door, and what I said made his new wife drop her glass. I don't think I've ever felt my hands shake like that before. I was standing on the porch of a two-story beige house in Wrentham, Massachusetts, heart pounding so hard I could feel it in my throat. It was a bright Saturday afternoon, the kind of day you'd think nothing bad could possibly happen. But bad things had already happened, 15 years of them, and I was about to make sure the truth finally came out. The door opened. And there he was, my father, or at least the man I used to call Dad. The same face I'd memorized from the one faded photo my mom kept, except older, grayer, and wearing a Red Sox cap like he used to when he'd take me to games before he supposedly died. He froze, his smile faded before it could even form. Behind him, a woman in a floral dress, his wife, appeared, holding a glass of white wine. She looked confused, glancing between us. "Can I help you?" she asked, polite but uneasy. I looked him straight in the eye and said, "Hi, Dad. I guess dying wasn't enough reason to miss my graduation, huh?" Her glass slipped from her hand and shattered on the porch. He didn't say a word, just stared. His lips parted like he might try, but nothing came out. That's when everything hit me at once. Every birthday I spent crying, every Christmas I told myself maybe he was watching over me, every night Mom said he loved me once, but people change. Turns out he hadn't changed. He just moved 20 miles away and started over. And that wasn't even the part that made my blood run cold. That came later, when I found out why Mom had lied. But I'm getting ahead of myself. It started 3 weeks earlier, with a box in the attic, one I wasn't supposed to find. Inside were 15 unopened birthday cards, all addressed to me, all in the same handwriting I hadn't seen since I was 8 years old. The return address was only one town over. That was the day everything I knew about my life started to unravel. And the day I decided to find out the truth, no matter who it destroyed. I grew up believing my dad was dead. When I was 8, Mom sat me down on the couch one night, eyes red, tissues everywhere, and told me there'd been a terrible accident on his way to work. A truck hit his car. They couldn't save him. That was it. I didn't go to a funeral because she said he wanted to be cremated privately. I didn't ask to see a death certificate because I was a kid. I just believed her. For years, it was just me and Mom. She worked double shifts at the diner, barely slept, but she never let me forget how much she sacrificed. Every time I asked about Dad, she'd sigh and say something like, "Sweetheart, he was a complicated man. Let's not dig up the past." And I'd drop it, because I thought I was protecting her. As I got older, though, little things started to bother me, like how she'd never let me keep that one photo of the three of us together, or how she'd tense up when Father's Day came around. Once, when I was 14, I asked where Dad was buried. She snapped and said, "You don't need to know that, he's gone." By the time I hit my 20s, I'd stopped asking questions. I went to college in Boston, got a marketing job after graduation, and tried to move on. I told people my dad died, and every time the words came out, it felt like saying a line I'd rehearsed too many times. Then 3 weeks ago, Mom slipped on the porch and fractured her wrist. I drove home to help her out, cleaning and organizing like she always demanded. That's when I found the box. It was in the attic, under a stack of old Christmas decorations. A shoebox, taped shut, labeled tax documents. I wouldn't have opened it if I hadn't heard something rattling inside. When I tore it open, I found envelopes. Dozens of them, all addressed to me. All written in the same handwriting I'd seen on the one birthday card I used to keep in my drawer as a kid, the one that said, "Love you to the moon, kiddo, Dad." The postmarks went back 15 years. Every one of them had been opened. Inside, the cards were cheerful, simple. "Happy birthday, my girl. I'm proud of you. Hope high school's treating you well. Tell your mom I said hi." The most recent one from this year had a short message. "I wish you'd write back. I miss you more than you'll ever know." There was a return address on every one. Same house, same street. Wrentham. I drove straight home, shaking, and confronted Mom the next morning. She froze when I dropped the cards on the kitchen table. For a second, I saw something in her face, guilt, fear, something deep. But then it vanished, replaced by that cold, brittle look she always used when she wanted to shut me down. "Those are from a long time ago," she said. He stopped writing, he didn't want to see you. But her voice cracked. And that was the first time I realized my father might not be dead. I didn't sleep that night. I just sat on the edge of my bed with the box of cards beside me, reading each one over and over. His words didn't sound like someone who didn't want me. They sounded like someone who was trying, really trying, to stay in touch. I checked the return address on Google Maps. It wasn't even far, 20 minutes from Mom's house, right over in Wrentham. He'd been that close for 15 years. I couldn't wrap my head around it. I kept thinking about all those years I begged Mom to tell me stories about him. How she'd always look away and say, "Some things are better left buried." Buried. That word hit different now. The next morning, I tried to bring it up again. I showed her the most recent card and said, "You lied to me, he's alive, you told me he was dead." She didn't deny it, she just said, "He might as well be." That was it. No explanation, no apology, just that cold, cutting tone she used when she wanted to end a conversation. So I left. I drove to the address on the card. It was a quiet street, lined with maple trees. Normal, suburban, nothing special. I sat there in my car for 15 minutes watching the house. A man came out to mow the lawn. He was older, but I recognized him instantly. My dad. He didn't look like a ghost. He looked alive. Comfortable, happy. A woman came out to hand him a glass of lemonade, and then two kids, teenagers, ran past them, laughing. He put his arm around one of them, ruffling their hair the way he used to do to me. I felt like the air had been punched out of my lungs. It wasn't that he was alive. It was that he'd replaced me. I drove back to Mom's in silence, gripping the steering wheel so hard my knuckles ached. When I got home, she was sitting at the table, sipping tea like nothing happened. "I saw him," I said. "He has a family." She didn't even flinch. "Good for him," she said. That's when I lost it. I slammed my hands on the table and shouted, "You told me he was dead. You made me mourn him. Why would you do that to me?" Her expression didn't change, but her hand trembled just slightly when she lifted the cup. "Because," she said quietly, "he doesn't deserve you." And for a second I thought maybe she was protecting me from something. But then she added, "He made his choice. So I made mine." That was when I realized this wasn't about me at all. This was about her. And if she'd lied about something that big, what else had she hidden? So I decided to find out. 2 days later, I called my aunt, Mom's younger sister, Lisa. We weren't super close, mostly because Mom always said she was a gossip who can't keep her nose out of other people's business. But right then, that was exactly the kind of person I needed. I didn't even have to finish the question. I just said, "Aunt Lisa, did my dad really die?" There was a pause on the other end. Then she said softly, "Oh, honey, she finally told you, huh?" "Told me what?" "That he's alive. I've wanted to tell you for years, but your mother," she stopped. "She made everyone swear not to. She said it would ruin everything." My hands went numb. "Ruin what?" Another pause. Then she said, "Your father tried to fight for custody after the divorce. He wanted joint custody. Your mom told the court he was abusive." My mind blanked. "He wasn't." "I know," Aunt Lisa whispered. Everyone knew. But she brought fake photos. She cried on the stand. She even said you were scared of him. The judge sided with her. I couldn't breathe. "She told him," my aunt continued, "that if he ever tried to contact you, she'd file for a restraining order. He kept trying anyway, sending those cards and letters, but she intercepted them. He even tried to see you at school once, but your mom made a scene and said he was stalking you. He stopped after that. He thought he was making your life harder." That's when it clicked, the sadness in his letters, the quiet tone, how he always said, "I hope you're doing okay," instead of "I'll see you soon." He thought I didn't want him. And all that time, she'd kept me thinking he was gone. I hung up the phone and just sat there, shaking. My whole childhood, every bedtime story, every memory, every time she told me we only had each other, had been built on a lie. I went through the box again, this time looking at the return addresses closely. I realized the last 3 cards were from the same month each year, May, right around my birthday. He'd never stopped. He'd kept trying to reach me, even when I never replied. I thought about all those birthdays where Mom would tell me he wouldn't have remembered anyway. I thought about how she'd take the mail and say, "Nothing for you today," while smiling like it was just another normal day. I felt something shift inside me, not sadness, not confusion, but pure, white-hot rage. She didn't just lie. She stole 15 years of my life with my father. 15 years of love, birthdays, and answers I could never get back. And he was right there, living one town over, thinking I hated him. That night, I made up my mind. I was going to find him, and I was going to make both of them face what they did together. For the first time since I found the box, the rage had a shape. It wasn't aimless screaming anymore, it was a plan. I lay awake that night, staring at the ceiling, running through everything I had. The cards, the return address, Aunt Lisa's voice, the memory of his hand ruffling a kid's hair on that lawn. I wrote a list on my phone and then checked it twice like some kind of furious, sleep-deprived CEO. Step 1. Evidence. Not because I needed to prove to him that she'd lied, he already knew, but because I needed to prove it to everyone else. To my life. To the kids I'd seen on that porch who didn't even know they had a sister. To the neighbors who thought we were a small, normal family. I scanned every single card, photographed postmarks, and made photocopies. I opened a burner email and started typing the story in raw, fragmentary lines so nothing could be lost. If Mom tried to burn the box, I wanted multiple backups on record. Step 2. Witnesses. Aunt Lisa was already on my side, shaky and furious and willing to talk. She promised to dig up court dates, the custody file, any court testimony, any record of restraining orders. If Mom had fabricated evidence, someone at the courthouse would have a paper trail. I texted my old school secretary, the one who used to give me permission slips when Mom's shifts ran late, and asked if she remembered any visit from my father or a scene. Small confirmations add up. That's what I kept telling myself. Step 3. Timing. I didn't want to ambush or yell on a doorstep. I wanted a moment where the truth could not be shoved under a rug. I watched the house for a week, careful, not stalking, just noting routines. I learned their rhythms. Soccer practice on Tuesdays, grocery runs on Saturday mornings, the neighbor's yard sale in June. There was a church picnic they attended every summer. There was a Memorial Day parade 2 towns over he liked to stand at. I picked a date where the family would be gathered and where there might be strangers around to witness a scene if one happened. Public, small, unavoidable. Step 4. Contact. I messaged him once, no accusatory fire, just the truth. I'm my name, I have your cards, I'm coming to see you. I debated whether to send photos of the cards. In the end, I didn't. I wanted him to look at me when he realized I was real. Aunt Lisa said she'd call her brother, not to warn him, but to tell him she'd help corroborate anything I said. I hated how vulnerable that made me feel. I hated it and I needed it. Step 5. The peel back. This was the part that felt like justice and like cruelty at the same time. I didn't plan to ruin his new life. I wanted him to get back what was stolen, his relationship with me. But I also wanted Mom to see the face of what she'd erased. So I planned to bring the box, the copies, and a printed timeline of her lies. If she denied it in front of people, I wanted the paperwork to make her hands tremble the way mine had when I first read the postmarks. There were smaller, nastier thoughts too, the kind that come when you've been hurt long enough to get dangerous in your imagination. I thought about sending copies of the cards to his new wife with a note. You deserve the truth. I considered calling the local paper. I thought about showing up at Mom's diner during lunch rush and leaving the box on the counter. My brain swung from righteous to petty, from smart to scorched earth. I knew I had to pick one approach and stick to it, so I picked the picnic, public enough that if Mom tried to deny everything, she'd have witnesses, intimate enough that his kids would be there. I'd bring Aunt Lisa, the copies, and my phone on record. I told myself this wasn't about punishment, it was about reclamation. About opening the window Mom had boarded up and letting light in. The night before I left the cards on the kitchen table like a weapon. Mom didn't notice. She hummed in the next room and watched TV. I slept maybe an hour. In the morning, I drove over, box in the passenger seat, hands sweaty on the steering wheel. I told myself I was ready. I told myself I'd be calm. I told myself I wouldn't scream. I pushed open the park gate and saw him by the food table, laughing with someone I'd seen in photos labeled wife on social media. The kids were nearby, sticky with soda, and the sun made everything small and ordinary. I should have expected that the moment would land heavier than any plan. I should have expected the first twist I hadn't planned for, the way he looked at me before anyone else did. He smiled, and it wasn't just recognition. It was relief. Then he walked toward me, and the picnic went quiet. When he reached me, I didn't know what to do, hug him, slap him, scream, my throat locked up. He looked stunned but not confused, like he'd been waiting for me. "Hey," he said softly. "You finally came." I blinked. You knew I might." He nodded once. His voice cracked. "I sent you those cards every year. I didn't know if your mom threw them out or if you were getting them and just didn't want to talk. But last year, she showed up at my door." My stomach dropped. "She what?" His new wife, the one with the wine glass, had walked up beside him now, clutching his arm tightly. She looked uneasy but curious. He sighed, glancing at her, then back at me. "Your mom came here last year, said you were in a bad place. Said if I cared about you, I'd stop contacting you completely, that hearing from me was making you depressed. She begged me to let you heal." I froze. "She came here," he nodded. "She cried, told me you hated me, that I'd ruined your life. She said if I loved you, I'd disappear for good." The wife stepped in then, gently but firm. I was there. She looked desperate, like she really believed what she was saying. I just stared. My mind went blank and hot at the same time. "She told me you were dead," I whispered. His wife gasped. My dad's face went pale. "What?" he breathed. "She said you died when I was 8, a car accident. I mourned you." My voice cracked and the rest got lost in my throat. He staggered back, covering his mouth like he might be sick. "Oh my God," he said. "She told you I was dead." That's when Aunt Lisa stepped forward from behind me. I hadn't even realized she'd caught up. "She lied to both of them, Dan," she said, her voice steady but shaking. "All these years. She made you both think the other didn't want you." The air went dead still. His wife looked between us, trying to piece together the nightmare she'd just walked into. His kids, my half-siblings, had stopped playing and were staring from a distance. My dad whispered, almost to himself, "She came here crying, begging me not to ruin your future when she's the one who destroyed your past." Then he looked at me, tears in his eyes. "I never stopped loving you, kiddo. Not once." It broke something open in me. I stepped closer, sobbing, and he pulled me into a hug so tight I thought my ribs would crack. I hadn't been held like that since I was 8 years old. People were staring. His wife was crying now too, quiet, controlled, but crying. Then she said something that froze me cold. "Wait," she said, "your daughter died." "What?" I pulled back. "She told us you lost custody because you were unstable, and then a few years later your daughter passed away. She said that's why you stopped reaching out. She even showed us an obituary clipping." I went cold all over. That meant my mom hadn't just lied to me. She'd lied to him too, in opposite directions. Told me he was dead, told him I was dead. Created 2 separate realities and kept them alive for 15 years. My dad turned to me slowly, shaking his head like he couldn't even find words. That was the moment I stopped wondering why she lied and started planning what I was going to do when I faced her next. I confronted Mom that night. She was in her recliner, watching TV like it was any other evening, a bowl of popcorn on her lap. I stood there in the doorway and said, "You told Dad I was dead." She froze. Her hand hovered in the air for maybe 2 seconds before she set the bowl down, slow and careful, like she already knew there was no talking her way out this time. Then she said, without even turning around, "I didn't want him to take you away from me." I just stared. "So you killed him in your stories and buried me in his?" She finally looked up. Her face was empty, like she was already somewhere else in her mind. "He left me," she said flatly. "Walked out when you were little. I did everything. I paid the bills, I fed you, I held everything together. He said he wanted shared custody, like I was going to let him have you half the time after everything he put me through." I took a step closer. "You said he was abusive." She didn't flinch. "He wasn't. He just didn't love me anymore." It hit me like a punch. "So you lied to the court?" She gave a small shrug. "No one would have believed me if I told the truth that he just stopped wanting me. But if I made them see him as dangerous, they'd take my side." I couldn't even speak. She kept going like she was explaining a recipe. "You were all I had left, and if he got you, even part-time, he'd have moved on faster. So I made sure that couldn't happen." Her tone was calm, almost rational. That was what made it terrifying. "You didn't think about what that would do to me," I said, my voice cracked halfway through. "I did," she said, "and I decided it was better this way. He would have filled your head with lies about me. I couldn't let that happen." "Mom," I whispered, "you made me grieve him for 15 years. You made me think I was unwanted." She tilted her head, eyes glassy and detached. "And yet you turned out fine. College degree. Good job." No drugs, no trouble. You can thank me for that. That's when I realized she wasn't sorry. She wasn't delusional or panicked or broken. She was satisfied, like she'd rewritten the story of our family and convinced herself it was noble. All those years I thought she was protecting me, she was protecting ownership. She didn't love me like a person. She loved me like a possession. I wanted to scream. Instead, I said, "You told him I was dead. You showed him an obituary." She smiled faintly, almost proud. "It wasn't hard. There are hundreds of names in the paper every week. I just found one that fit your age and clipped it." He believed it. He always believed what he wanted to. That was it. That was her justification. She didn't want to share, so she erased him. And when he moved on and found happiness again, she erased me. She leaned back as if this whole thing bored her now. "You think he deserves you now? After all this time? Go ahead. Go find your fairy tale dad. See how long it lasts." That's when I knew my revenge couldn't just be confrontation. It had to undo her. Not with violence, with truth, the truth she'd buried for 15 years. The next morning, I didn't argue, I didn't cry, I didn't even say goodbye. I just walked out, but not before taking the box. Over the next few weeks, I made everything public. Not in a messy, screaming way, in a quiet, documented, methodical one. Aunt Lisa helped me get the old custody records, copies of court transcripts, even a notarized statement from my dad confirming what Mom told him over the years. We organized everything. Every letter, every timeline, every lie. Then I wrote it all down, the whole story, and sent it to the people who'd believed her the longest. Our family, her coworkers at the diner, her church group, the friends she'd spent years convincing that my dad had abandoned us. I didn't embellish. I didn't insult. I just attached the evidence and wrote one sentence. "Here's what really happened to my father." She called me 30 times the next day. I didn't answer once. By the end of the week, Aunt Lisa told me Mom had been asked to take a leave from the diner. The owner didn't want that kind of drama around. The church dropped her from the volunteer roster. Every person who used to pity her now looked at her with disgust. But I didn't care about the social fallout. That was surface level. The real revenge came when my dad called me one night and said, "Your little brother wants to meet you." It wasn't dramatic, no tears, no big scene. Just a quiet dinner, all of us at the same table. His wife was kind, nervous, but open. The kids were polite. My dad sat beside me like he was afraid I'd disappear if he looked away. When dessert came, I handed him the box. "These belong to you," I said. He shook his head. "No," he said softly. "They always belong to you." We both cried. But it wasn't the shattered kind of crying, it was the exhausted, healing kind. The kind that meant the story wasn't over, just rewritten. After dinner, I stopped by Mom's house one last time. She answered the door but didn't open it all the way. She looked smaller, not weak, just stripped of whatever control she used to feed off. I handed her an envelope with a single photograph inside. Me and Dad, sitting at a cafe earlier that day, smiling. I said, "You can't erase people anymore." She didn't respond. She just stared at the photo like it was a ghost. Then I turned and walked away. I haven't spoken to her since. Dad and I talk every week now. He still slips up sometimes, calls me kiddo like I'm 8 again, but I don't correct him. I let him. He's making up for lost time, and so am I sometimes. Late at night, I still get angry. I think about how different my life could have been if she'd just told the truth. But then I remember her face when I said those last words at her door, the way her mouth opened but nothing came out, and I feel peace. Not forgiveness. Not yet, but peace. Because the woman who buried me in lies finally has to live with the truth, and the truth doesn't go quietly. You can't erase people anymore. That's my closure line. My whole childhood, rewritten into one sentence. And it's enough.